Hello everyone. I am Sherry Turkle.
And I am Philip Lindsay. I am here interviewing the professor about her work.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, Philip. I really admire your intellect and good looks.
Thanks. Anyway, you're right about technology and its effects on society. What are your main points?
My main points are to be careful with technology, because technology changes who we are and how we interact with each other. Sometimes for the better, like we might keep in touch with people we normally wouldn't, but sometimes for the worse, like when we substitute connections for conversations.
I see. What educational programs or interventions have you investigated or developed?
Well, none, really. But my research can be applied to educational settings and should be studied by educators who use technology with their students. In my research, I note that technology should be used across the curriculum and we should be developing a more dynamic view of technological fluency, so students can utilize it proactively.
Wow. Great answer. My next question is about how your research can be applied to the educational world. How can it?
I've said in other places that technology education has been too focused on boys, in much the same way that science and math is. So anyone applying my research would try to fix that. Also, I've been very critical of programs like PowerPoint, which don't utilize technology in a formative way, only superficially. Weak sauce, homie, weak sauce.
Weak sauce. Homie. Okay. Anyway, what else you got, Doc?
I've got lots more for you. I'd like to talk about MUDs or multi-user dungeons for a second. Typically, they allow users to assume different identities, which can either be therapeutic or can cause problems, like when we confuse reality with fantasy, or when children pose as adults. So, educators need to be aware of the fact that children are taking part in this world and the positives and negatives that exist.
Yeah, it's important to look at technology not as an end in itself, but as a means towards the end of proper education.
Exactly. We live in techno-enthusiastic times. In the area of education, people look to technology to be a salvation, but it isn't that easy. Technology can be applied in good ways and bad. It challenges us to assert our human values, which means we have to first figure out what they are and determine if technology can help us foster them.
Wow. What a great insight. I was wondering if you could expound on some things you've said in other places. For instance, you say that today's generation of students is the first to see simulations as a virtue, and they have trouble seeing where reality and simulation slip away from each other.
Yes. And this could lead to problems. I think when you have a generation that doesn't see simulation as second best, doesn't know what's behind simulation and the programming that goes into simulation, but just takes it at interface value, you really have a setup for a very problematic political, among other things, set of issues. The turning point was when computers became powerful enough to host multimedia interfaces, and students no longer had to program computers to understand what's going on under the hood. That's when you start getting into terrible trouble with simulations, because you're so dependent on it. You don't know how it works, and there begins to be slippage between the simulated and the real.
Interesting. Why did you just do that motion with your arms? Weird. Anyway, any other insights you would like to share with our future school librarians?
Oh yes. I would like to say that we have been reading for a long time now. Humans, I mean, not just me and you. We approach written text with centuries-long habits of readership. Asking questions that librarian educators have instilled in us, information literacy skills. Now, we have to approach technology with the same active mindset and question the motives and accuracy of our computers and technology, in much the same way we question written texts. You know, our computers and their programs can be so scintillating and attractive that they encourage us to not question them with a critical mind. This is unfortunate and possibly dangerous. I am not saying they are necessarily bad, but they are certainly not necessarily good, either.
That's definitely true. You have also been on record as being sort of a traditionalist, as a nostalgist.
Yes, well, To an extent that's true. If someone was getting something valuable from their technology, then I wouldn't want to take that away from them. And I'm no Luddite, I am a big fan of technology. I'm just saying we need to be careful because we could be losing something valuable if we utilize too much technology without understanding how it changes us. For instance, I would feel bereft if, because technology wants us to read short, simple stories, we bequeath to our children a world of only short, simple stories. What technology makes easy is not always what nurtures the human spirit.
Word up to that.
Plus, it is absolutely, in my view, the wrong argument for our times, because how are we going to convince our children that we are giving them a world where the problems are more complex than ever? Education, the environment, politics, are all more complex than ever, and also be telling them that actually you can get it in mind-sized bites, little haiku bits of information, that you can kind of get it on the web. I don't think so, people.
So education is suffering because of technology? I mean, not all the time, but at least partly so?
Yes, that sounds like something I would say. To me, every part of the story about the forward thinking of the mind-sized bite puts technology first, doesn't put technology in its place, and disempowers us rather than empowers us. And there's the aesthetic argument. We turn out to be wonderful as human beings at being able to follow the complexity of meaning in other people and narratives. By putting the premium on what's fast, it takes away from education the ability to reason with your students about complicated things. That's why they shouldn't be doing everything virtually. That's why they should come to universities and be in a community. And most important, it takes away from the future our best way of thinking about complexity, which really is to study very long stories and try to put them together. And so when I teach at MIT, I live in a world of people arguing the fast and the furious, and I don't think that it holds up.
Wow. You are so smart and I have learned so much from this. Anything else about schools and learning that you would like to tell our audience?
Oh yeah. So here's the thing about the schools. Computers are seductive. Computers are appealing. There's no harm in using the seductive and appealing to draw people in, to get them in their seats, and to begin a conversation. The question is, what happens after that?
So technology is a good attention grabber to get kids who have to be here, legally, a small reason to stay?
I'm actually quite positive about all kinds of technology to get people who need to be in chairs. I'm a pragmatist. I think there's a crisis in education. I want to do what works. But after they're in their chair, the most impressive programs I've seen is where children form relationships with mentors. Now, they can be doing technology while they're having this relationship with a mentor. But kids who the system is failing don't have relationships and reasons to keep studying, learning and thinking.
Excellent. Any last thoughts for our listeners, before we leave them?
Yes. This seems like a good place to talk about solitude and its benefits. You know, loneliness is just failed solitude. And I think with this ever-present technology, of us being always on and always reachable, can lead to people not knowing how to be alone, which is a great educational opportunity. We have real evidence that shows that real, powerful, deep learning takes place when one is alone, which is a great reason why libraries are so great and can play another important role in our society.
Miss Turkle, I have no more questions. Do you have any more answers?
I hope no one takes what I have said for answers.